campus, Brookfield Road.
Here we go.
Good.
All right,
I
yep.
need to start over. No.
No.
Okay.
it's just-
All right, Evan, you're up, your first one up. So just so you know, we're gonna, I mean, we gave you the time slot. We have other people behind you, so. Have
Let's
at
start
it.
15 minutes.
Yeah, we haven't seen you in a little bit. Let's see if you have anything new.
Yes, sir. So, thank you for the board for the time.
Yep.
I appreciate 7 o'clock right on the,
Wait, hold up.
Patsy Bradley signed on, she's on Zoom,
Oh, okay.
That's fine.
so.
Perfect.
So,
All right, thanks.
you know, she's here.
You're up, Evan. Thank you.
sir.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
no worries. So I guess my overall thought of my time here today is, I know I've got a big perspective thing going on.
Yep.
Rumor mills are rather efficient at getting a lot of information around quickly, however, inaccurate some of it might be.
Yep.
So I wanted to make sure that you guys heard about something. It was from me, at least, so you wouldn't have to rely on a rumor mill. I'd better to hear it from me. I don't need any, like, I'm not here for any, decisions or, I'd love some feedback if you wanted it, but it's not necessary or needed. We just want to give you where my head's at and what's in the concept right now. So the properties I have under contract for mostly purchase is approximately 1,000 acres. Starting north and south of Brookfield Road and working west, basically all the way on the north side, into Sturbridge. And north all the way through the Jennings properties up Brookfield Road into the backwoods. On the south side, Mr. Tim Morrow's property right at Brookfield Road to the Turnpike. And Mr. Bob Hitchcock's property on the backside of Griffin Road. And then I'm discussing with Mr. Larry McKissick
Yep.
about some of his property. So that's
Okay.
what I'm talking about. I am fully aware, your bylaws do not cover that kind of solar facility or allow for that kind, much less many other kinds. But, as I look at the campus, I think of it as a large solar campus with a couple other features. Those other features grew a little organically. Once you get that much solar together, it's done because you need a transmission level connection. You've seen, solar stall out across the Commonwealth, but you guys have probably seen it too, kind of fell right off a cliff. No more applicants, some legacy folks like the Sturbridge Road limping along, but it's because all the electrical networks filled up. And of course, bylaws got more stringent as they needed to in many places. And now it becomes if you're gonna build something, you've got to go big enough to build your own substation. So you've got to, that's the motivation, right? It's one off here and there, 20, 30 acres doesn't work anymore. And what became apparent was that with all the acreage on the turnpike, and then I got acreage on both sides, it started making sense to think about long haul, large truck charging, because you need a power plant's worth of power for that if they're battery electric trucks. Which are not today, but maybe 10, 15 years is the direction. When I started looking at all of that, realizing how expensive all that equipment was, the charging plugs, all the infrastructure, it started making more math sense to build a bridge and make one side instead of two sides of the turnpike, as the state and the utilities are looking at right now. And then I've got the connection size and the solar and probably a battery with it, like a lot of solar arrays. And I'm building a bridge. I thought, why wouldn't you bring it all the way to Route 20? In that concept, right? It's not a plan, it's still an idea. So, forgive me, I know I don't have all those pieces and people lined up, but the properties are pretty much lined up. Minus hopefully crossing the line with Mr. McKissick. Otherwise, they're all under purchase or lease contract. One lease, the rest purchases. So I guess what I've got, to sort of share with you is a little bit of a vision. And a little bit of a request that you guys sort of think about how, or if you'd like to approach it, consider it. Because even like a regular town bylaw, like solar was just allowed and it was just, this is what we want. This kind of thing is not what most of those bylaws would ever be conceived of. So what I envision is, several hundred acres of solar, that funnel down to a commercial charging facility on one of the turnpike adjacent properties. With hopefully in a 10-year time frame, a new bridge built to be a new exit to serve one large facility instead of two spread out facilities like the Charlton Turnpike plazas are now, if you electrified them all the way. And hopefully that includes an exit onto Route 20 in the fullness of time. It seems silly to build all that and not come the next, 3,000 feet to Route 20. I don't know if that's something the town specifically wants or things the town would specifically like to have alongside that. That's part of what I'm here for, is to just put it on the table and see if and what you guys over time think about. My permitting routes are one of 3 doors. The door I'd like to never go down is having to challenge bylaws to try, and I don't think I'd want to, I hate that. I'll do everything I can not to go down that door. I do think, as a side note, your bylaw after, now that we're post the Supreme Court decision on solar, is a little risky as it is. I don't think some of the challenging things for me in there, the Attorney General shot a couple of them down. I would also tell you there are more graceful ways to accomplish exactly what you want to. And I'd be happy to tell you about it in a more appropriate time and setting and whatnot. Just because I do it every day, all day, look at bylaws and see what works and see what doesn't. So that's door number 1. Ugh. Door number 2, which I think I like the most, is if, by town meeting, which of course has its own mechanics to get anything on a town meeting, was an overlay district for that campus area. Something like a major energy projects area that had a shelf life and specific properties where you had specific regulations, that were contained like a normal overlay district. That would allow for that, but would be otherwise will leave your bylaw alone, right? It's just, it makes that area work. And my third option at the scale of this is the Energy Facility Siting Board at the state level. That's it right now. If you guys said, Evan, we're never going to touch this, thank you, but no thank you. That's the only door that is clearly and cleanly open for this kind of item. It is well above the threshold size-wise for aggregate generation that qualifies you among many qualification routes for that board. Like you had a gas facility here, go that route because that's a special carve out. The other carve out for power plants is 100 megawatts of generation. And that's what this would be. And the total megawatts I've envisioned on this is 150 to 130 across the entire thing if it were just solar. So it's big enough to qualify that way. But I deep down think it should be better more. It has all the pieces and they're irreplaceable to do a large scale charging facility for trucks. Those trucks will need at full speed 2 to 3 megawatts of charging, which is like a good fraction of the whole Amazon building, because they got to shove a month's worth of household power into a truck in 30 minutes to turn it and keep it moving. You've got unparalleled location here right before 84 and 90 split, where the highway is still together, but so you could catch all the traffic. You've got transmission lines, that run to your substation in the west, and one that runs right down the middle of town, where right on Brookfield Road. It's got all the pieces, and they are so hard to put together from where do all those things line up? Can't move the highways, you can't move the transmission lines. So that's how I see it right now. Is it essential to do a charging and an exit? No. Do I think it's the right best thing to do? Yes. Because the state is determined to electrify, and the position here is unassailable so far as the physical layout, location in the state, and being able to power it on site with a big solar array. So far as the array itself, same concept as a lot of the others, a little electrically different, but the goal of having all that acreage besides volume is that I don't have to have neighbors. Because you get enough acreage, you insulate yourself. So that's where you, like an overlay district might have different regulations and give the board different power. And I like that version, doing it local if I can. But right now, it's not an option, but I'd like to think it could be, and I'd love to know over time, if and what the board would think would be any critical components of that. I saw you guys, handled a heavyweight job like the Amazon, building, very much a step up and, the normal stuff you permit here. And I'm hoping between that and the solar, you guys have, you've got the experience and the perspective to see how this could fit as well.
All
And
right.
that's it.
All right, thank you, Evan, for going over that, and actually your vision. Just sharing it with us. So anyone from the board have any questions or comments for Evan? For what his proposal or scope is?
How many acres did you say?
It's about 1,000. I can do the math, hopefully I like,
What you,
oh, yeah, that's the whole, everything under contract. What you actually use, of course, is less.
Yeah.
Most of the life is packaging. You never use everything you get. I would generally say, in my experience, it is all but impossible to use more than half of what I get under contract. That's 8 years of doing this work. It's so hard to get above that just practically.
What about another option, Mr. Turner, of going with the state? They already have laws that, you know, supersede our bylaws for solar. Why not go to them and let them increase their, you know, open up the filter at the state level so that they just supersede local bylaws? Where are we with that?
The governor established a commission at the state level full of like 17 or 27 different stakeholders to look at solar permitting. I think their recommendations are due in January or February. So I don't know in a year's time what, I meant eventually that probably goes from that recommendation to the legislature to make some rule, if any. And I imagine it'll look like, again, this is me guesstimating. New York has a state level permitting board for solar specifically. That is a 25 megawatt threshold. So the big local projects are 5 megawatts. The utility scale might be 100. That board starts at 25. I don't know what they'll come up with. That's what the most comparable state does as of a couple years ago. So there might be a different lay of the land. But ultimately, like my goal, like if I can work with you guys here, I think that's the best first choice. Like that's, again, if you don't want to, if the town didn't want to do it or you guys didn't, there wasn't, sure. But I don't want to, you know, I want to have a clean conscience that every opportunity was there, even if it wasn't the way to go.
But I think we've got the bylaws passed through town meeting. We're just representatives, the voice
Yeah,
of
you
the
have to
people.
respect
They-
that, right? You
they
do.
Told us what they do and don't want for limits, and so then that's why I go to the state level or maybe federal level. We should be
Mhm.
talking to them and encourage them to put, you know, open up their filters and force towns to accept more larger solar.
Well,
Not
yeah, yeah.
down at this level. It's a lot of time to go around every town to try. to
Yeah, and
convince
that's-
them to do that.
I would say I'm not looking to force anything on the town. I believe a town meeting vote at some point this will involve it somehow, right? Whether it's zoning or if it's just allowed like a host community agreement, there's some version that has you in front of the town making your case. And I think, you know, like even a zoning change, like if that was the will of the people, and you know, I have the landowners and I believe the support to get a special town meeting, kind of like Amazon did, like, let's talk about this specifically. I mean, of course, you have to abide if you're successful or not by that outcome. But that's how I would envision like an overlay district. You know, if I proposed one with regs, because I know how to write solar regs. I'd love, you know, the board would of course here weigh in. What they would support, not support, changes, etc. And that's how I kind of see that, if that were the route. You know, trying to align up what the people expect locally with what's allowed locally. But if it didn't exist, yeah, I mean, the state level would be the natural scale.
That's a question.
Go right ahead, yeah.
Have you had any conversations with National Grid? Because currently, some of our existing solar fields are not turned on.
Oh, yeah, it's a whole thing.
Because, well, there's the lack of infrastructure. You're gonna make all this power, it's gonna go to a substation. Can even the high transmission lines handle that power?
Yes, sir. So one, I have a meeting with them on the 12th, a week from today. Is it 6th? Yesterday. About that specifically. It'll be the third of 3 meetings before I formally apply, I expect, for all these arrays or one big array, whichever way you look at it. So the utility has given out actually a couple plans of that in their long-term planning. The state mandated they put together a electrify everything plan that was due in September. National Grid had to do one, Eversource for the eastern half, and the western part of the state did one. So did Unitil. For Charlton specifically, what they proposed, they're planning on doubling the size of the West Charlton sub. Basically by adding another full-size transformer, pretty normal stuff, bunch of solar arrays, Amazon, all sorts of stuff. They're also proposing over a 10-year time frame, 2023 due date, of adding a new substation and 132 megawatts worth of solar capacity. They're using megawatt terms, so I'm translating. To build somewhere, they don't know where yet, but there's line on the 115 lines maybe next to the West Charlton sub. They need to then bury 4 35 megawatt lines in the street to go to each of the turnpike plazas to electrify them.
If you built your solar field when would it actually be turned on? National Grid isn't
Yeah.
known for being.
No,
quick,
like,
So,
the good, fast and cheap triangle, the utility has never had to do fast. And we don't necessarily want them to if it costs you good or cheap. So what I envision a little bit is there's probably a phase one that's whatever solar. I've got access to the 69 kV line on Brookfield Road. That might be a quicker turn on, it might not. Otherwise, it might be a 5 or a 10-year build out. Like, it's not a short flip it and leave solar development game. But what the utilities are planning for their 10-year perspective is build a whole substation as big as Charlton's to do 2 charging plazas on each side. I think I can do that better, cheaper in one spot without spending $25 to $30 million just to get the power lines to each of them. That stuff costs $5 million a mile to bury those lines in the road. And there's no other, I mean, they can't put them on poles, 4 power lines that are barely short of transmission voltage. So it's a big change that they've proposed.
Okay.
And that's where I'm seeing a step, I think I see a better version of that. I was really excited in September when I saw that. Because I started on this 18 months before that, I was thinking, seeing this was a spot.
Can you elaborate on how does the town benefit from this? I understand how you benefit, I understand how
Yeah.
landowners benefit, the truckers on the bike, I get that.
So as from a pure taxable base standpoint, I would see somewhere between 2 to 300,000 or $2 to $300 million and 500 million being put into Charlton proper. It's an open-ended question of how big a battery would be on a campus like this to facilitate the charging and how expensive the charging campus would be. Biggest, fullest scale, it approaches $1 billion of assets that would be in Charlton, some less around in Sturbridge because there is land over there, but that's not, your guys' role. So it's a large taxable base. It's a highway exit. I presume the town wants one. People seem to say that would be awesome, but that's not the same thing as actually deciding you want it. And all the, I'd say, commerce and, sort of economic blood flow that would allow for it. So between, money and access that otherwise, if your town was, like, we'd love an exit if that was the whole popular decision. I don't know how otherwise you get someone to pay for it if it's not associated with a big electrical infrastructure, charging facilitating project. And I don't know how that would play out either. It might be me building it. It might be DOT building it. Who knows? There's a lot involved in that, but I think that's a benefit. Why I've kind of leaned into it. It seemed to make sense. I wouldn't need to get anything to 20, but like an exit to get to Route 20, but why wouldn't you build it if you could? That's a question I'd love for Charlton to weigh in on.
Have you been to Sturbridge yet with this?
You guys are in the lead. So, I mean, it really changes. If you guys say like, we don't want to do this at all.
Okay.
I mean, I look at the state level, right? If one town says no, but you guys have a lot more of it, right? They've got 300 acres or so on the backside. You guys have, in theory, the substation on the 69 kV line that I'd need, the highway exit area, most of the solar. You guys are the primary group here. I have talked to Sturbridge before, earlier this year, but just as the same heads up courtesy, like this is a thing. It has grown since then. I will probably give them another meeting just to talk about it. But their bylaws are similarly restrictive with the same kind of, well, we could allow it in right this specific way, but really it's just kind of a tough thing to fit as they are now. So, complicated by 2 towns. That's what I've got a hold of.
John, go ahead.
Just, so you say we, it's not us, it's the town.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. Yeah.
The town that said no to
Mhm.
the large scale. And
Yes.
first there's a moratorium. And then we put it before the town. I think there was, instead of eliminating or curtailing all development. We said, well, maybe we'll do, I think it was maybe an extra 10 or 15 megawatts.
Mhm.
They came back at town meeting and said no more.
Mhm. So I get, that's what I'm gonna say. We, I guess I sometimes substitute the board for Charlton
Yeah.
because you guys are the people they've hired for back of the letter term to represent Charlton and let's make a plan mentality.
So
I would,
my question to you is, you're pitching a plan to National Grid. And National Grid knows that there's no, that the way the town stands for our policy as it is today. So how do you how do you pitch something that is not even feasible at this point in time?
So it is feasible through the state level permitting, so that's
Okay.
one. And National Grid doesn't have the bandwidth or the right in their process to judge your permitting, perspective there. You have a customer on a site, they ask for this connection to the grid, that's their job. It's not to do a zoning, checkup, or if you make a judgment on zoning or how it would be used otherwise, that's out of their scope. I would just note the town's numeric limit on solar arrays was disallowed, or something very, very similar was disallowed by the AG twice in the last 2 weeks on new bylaws. Pelham and Shutesbury tried to do that, and the AG flat out disallowed it. So just to lay the land for you, that's post Tracer Lane Supreme Court case. The AG, which acts with the power of the courts when they're reviewing bylaws, has said that's clearly not allowable as designed. It violates not maybe the Dover Amendment, maybe not, but chapter 40A, section 4, I think, which is like equal treatment within a zoning district for everyone, not like everyone gets to do what everyone gets to do, is the way that lay. I'm very much paraphrasing that law.
So just to surmise that it goes to the board, if it goes back to the town rejects it. The people don't want it, you're still in full lockstep that you're gonna proceed with the project.
State level,
anyway.
yes, sir. I didn't spend all the time putting it together, because I don't think it's worthwhile and also is permittable.
So why the spiel before it when you want to do it anyways?
Well, I'd like to do it with you because I think that's a better version of
It's
doing it.
Not us.
Sorry.
It's the-
I'd like to do it with the planning board and Charlton.
And it's not the planning board, it's the people of the town.
I'd like to do it with the people of the town under regulations they approve,
But if,
presuming those have to go through a town meeting.
if they're not gonna approve it, you're gonna try to do it
Yeah.
other ways.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine, at least you're honest.
And can you tell me the two towns that you just spoke of, the Attorney
It was
General?
Pelham and Shutesbury.
Shrewsbury.
Yep, that's correct, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, any other questions from the board? No comments? I'm just gonna take a couple questions, because we have people, go ahead,
I'll
John,
be
Go-
brief.
only because I see we have some town.
I'll try to be as brief as
Go ahead.
possible. Whatever we have, 25, 30 solar
Yeah,
fields. Oh, first of all, John Sanborn,
Correct.
12 Jennings Road.
thank you.
I'm here as a resident. However, I am also chairman of the Board of Health. So, and I do live on Jennings Road, which is just off Brookfield Road. I'm not in a butter doing a butter to a
Yep,
butter,
yeah,
to
yeah,
anything, but I want to just make that absolutely clear.
Mm-hmm.
How many acres currently are there of solar panels in the town, roughly? Does anybody know here? Couple hundred acres?
It's about 65 megawatts, which is more than twice what we use for our residential homes.
But what's the
But how many
coverage?
acres?
What's the land coverage?
The
ballpark?
average, how you guys have figured it, or the state originally was 5 acres per megawatt. It's ending up to be more like 8. So if you do 65 times,
It depends how you count the acreage. Is it, just the panels? Is it the whole area? Is it the
Probably
fence?
like.
so
and
65 times 8.
I'm kind of guessing off the top of my head,
and
some of the
That's fine.
250, 300 acres of
Okay, so
land
300.
is dedicated to the solar fields, might not be all solar fields, but that's how much land. it
All right,
is.
so where I'm going with that is, total Charlton square miles is 43.8 square miles. 800 acres. When Mr. Turner was here, October 5th, 2022, for the previous meeting that he had with you folks, he was talking 800 acres. So 800 acres is equal to 1.25 square miles. That equates to 2.85% of all of Charlton's total land and water area. Now, total of Charlton covered with water is 1.3%. So, nice little map there.
Yeah, so you got,
All that blue
Yeah.
there, picture all of that consolidated up there off Brookfield Road and down around the Mass Pike in that corner. All of that would be solar fields, all of it. Roughly, maybe more. Now he's talking 1,000 acres. So I just want the townspeople and the board to realize what this would mean. That's a huge, huge area, 800 acres. And there's a house for sale up you can look it up on Realtor, just went up this week, $749,000, 58 Jennings Road. Look it up on the satellite. Guess what the property backs up to? Legend Development Corporation owned by, I believe, Mr. Richardson of Fitzgerald Road. That's 84 acres. I'm sure you know better, but I've done my homework too. So their back property line now could potentially look out at solar panels. I look out my back door certain times of the year, and I've got a solar field panels shining into my eyes while I'm watching TV certain times of the year. Solar glare. So that's just so you know where I am. So.
Okay.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for those numbers.
Yep. Oh, I've got it here too, if you want. I'll give you some copies.
All right, thank you, Tom. All right. Go ahead, so last one. We got people
Hey,
waiting.
Matt, Paul Drive. I just have a question of curiosity between the established solar farms you have now and the proposed solar farm or facility that they're proposing here.
Yep.
How many total panels would you estimate that is?
Ooh, I haven't done that math.
Ballpark.
I've got to do some, I'm gonna go to my phone if you don't mind to do some math out loud.
18,005 megawatts.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, panels, the count changes.
I believe it's for 5 megawatts of that, McDougal's, it was 18,000 panels. 18,000. 18,000.
It's several hundred thousand. Like, there's just somewhere above 200,000 probably. Depends on the size of the panels, right?
Right,
It's-
in the power. and solar,
Yeah,
understand
I mean,
it's variable.
I'm not gonna, like, I'm not here to beat around the bush. This is big thinking projects. It is bigger than all of the other arrays you have in town combined. You will have less neighbors than all of the other arrays you have in town, singular, one apiece. And it would be the biggest array in Massachusetts as a complex, like maybe not every one of them if they're broken up. But it would be, as I understand right now, the biggest proposed. Like, it's not a small swing. That's why I'm here to, like, I'm not trying to keep it quiet. I'm not trying to drop something on the desk of the state level board and, quiet. Right? That's every courtesy of, I can, work with you guys or get input on what works. Everything on the spectrum's something I'm thinking about.
Okay.
Please.
I just want to follow up.
Go ahead.
Having said that, the amount of panels, when that gets established, I think there needs to be some serious research into the recycling, the cost of recycling. There's only a couple, as far as I know, the research I've done, and I'm no genius. There's only a couple dozen recyclers in the country, and I don't think they're up to speed on this stuff yet. And if all that stuff gets pushed down the road and no one looks at that at the front end, I think it's very critical to be able to look at how this stuff is and possibly make developers responsible for the panels that they install from cradle to grave. So the town doesn't have to deal with scrap and bonds and all the other stuff that's associated with that. They seem to skip over that.
All right.
I agree.
Thank you.
I agree. Like, there aren't a lot of recyclers because most of the panels haven't hit their end of life, but it absolutely has to be like, that's what you want as part of a permit. So, yes.
All right. Last one, Steve, go right ahead.
Yeah, Steve Coronas, 17 Worcester Road Extension, also on the Charlton Board of Selectmen, but 1,000 acres, so 800 acres, 1,000 acres. So, but you're talking about, from what I saw in the original plan, and I haven't seen the updated one, a lot of this is old growth forest.
No, not a lot of it. I mean, it depends what you mean by a lot. A lot in pure acres, like
Yeah.
it's a big enough campus. There is area that hasn't been cut. Old growth is a specific term that doesn't apply to most of this, because most of it's been forested in the last 50 to 100 years at least. And by the acreage, I mean, it's the acres of property under contract. It doesn't mean that's the entire size of the array. Just to be clear, right? You might end up with 400 acres out of that 1,000 that get used,
So,
by example.
so for 1,000 acres, you would see this thing from space, number one,
I mean, Google Maps can see my backyard from space, but yes.
okay? I can give a sarcastic.
But yeah, it will be large.
The-
It will be noticeable from the highway particularly.
It would be, but what happens to the habitat and the animals and the deer and the antelope and all the other beavers and everyone else that lives on that property?
Same thing that happens if you do a subdivision over the same acreage that's entirely allowed by your bylaws and everywhere in Massachusetts. Land conversion is allowed. There are benefits to farms and fields and forests. You can't have them all at the same time. And landowner rights do not really change, depending on if it's tree covered or not. Like, that's just not a thing. The AG has actually shot that down too in Pelham and Shutesbury.
Mhm.
It would have to be fenced in, correct? legally now? So you're taking that whole area of land out of circulation. To that gentleman's point of the animals.
All right, thank you very much, Evan, for the update.
Thank you, everybody, for your
And,
time.
hope to hear from you soon as we get any other updates.
Will
Get
do.
more information. All right, thank you. Evan. All right. Next up, we have a request from Miss Joanne Burlingame for a partial release of covenant located at Glenview subdivision, release lots 12B, 29, 12B, 34 off Center Depot Road.
Yeah,
Well,
we'll
pass it
pass
out, go
out
right
a
ahead.
copy, we worked with, Ms. Hurley and actually, Kurt Misk is, building commissioner and zoning officer. Knows about the history of this a lot better than I do, so he's gonna try to give a brief explanation. The whole question is whether this lot, well, I believe, can be, the covenant can be released on this property, so. Hopefully, we'll give an explanation, make everybody, give everybody understanding on how the planning board does have the authority to be able to approve this.
All right, so as we know, this is continued from our last meeting. And we have a nice map in front of us that's color coded. And Bertie,
The original question is whether this, the lot 12,
yeah,
was supposed to be part of the public open space. Because it's kind of an open land.
now that is just in reference to the plan that we have for us, that's the pink colored lot
Yeah, the
in
pink-
front of us,
Yeah,
okay,
at the end of Elliott Drive.
all right. So they're looking for the lot release on the pink one and then the green one as well.
They put on the orange. I hope this is supposed to.
That's the current open space
That's the current
as the
open
results of the Scott Drive extension that was done. Subdivision.
So Carson, since you're here, if you want to give a quick overview on this, that'd be great, thank you. We could,
From Holland, that way, whatever,
yeah,
that works.
Yep.
So 1989, the planning board approved a subdivision called Glenview Estates or Glenview Drive Estate or something rather, which would be mostly this area over here. Okay, it was made up of a mixture of size lots. There are some 60,000 square foot lots there. There's some lots that are less than that size. How that came about, why they aren't all 60,000 square feet is immaterial at this time because it's been approved, they've been built on. In late '90s, early 2000. Scott Drive Extension came before the planning board. It was permitted under the planning board rules for a flexible subdivision. And in a flexible subdivision, the developer gives 25% of the raw land to be preserved as permanent open space. Turned over to an entity or a 5013C, someone, you know, that would be custodials of that land. During this Glenview Estates process, there was a little lot carved out here. Which is part of this lot that we're talking about. And that lot has gone away. It's annotated on plans that have been before the planning board. It had a book and page for the A&R for it. But my understanding right now is that, one, no one has bought that lot. I know that for a fact. And two, that it's been absorbed into this piece of land here that was part of this original subdivision, as Mr. Benson said open space. We didn't have flexible subdivision until 1999-ish. I had some notes, but I forgot to bring them. So it was a trade. It was a nice ask. I don't know why it was there. Glenview Estates, Scott Drive Extension, this whole area in red was part of Scott Drive's extension approval, the flexible subdivision. This piece of land up here is labeled and is annotated in the decision of the planning board to be open space, to be turned over to the town or other appropriate entity. It was never done. Town of Charlton accepted this as a way. We accepted it as a town road. That never got done. So when the Burlingames came to me to get a building permit for this lot, my first question was, is there a road there? Is there frontage? That was questionable because pavement ends not across the whole width of the lot, but we did find records that the town of Charlton accepted Glenview Estates, including all the way up here. This lot here, another little lot, actually, I think it's supposed to be on the other side of the red line. It's got a stream running through it. And covenant had never been released on it. When planning board was releasing covenants for all these lots within here, they released them one at a time. The deed has these margin notes all the way up and down it.
Yep.
One at a time. I found it phenomenally complicated to do that. So, Ms. Hurley, the attorney for the Burlingames has, sorted through the whole thing. I've looked at what she says. And my recommendation to them is since this lot is pretty much unbuildable because of water issues, it has a stream drainage ditch running through it, you're never gonna meet conservation approval, that they join these two lots together. We definitely have road frontage here, and we definitely have access there. And the question of, does this need to be preserved as open space? I don't think is applicable because it has no meaning anywhere in anything that the planning board has done from the records I. So you're gonna end up with a very large lot that has a wetland issue up in here, stream in here, bunch of wetlands all through here. And we just gotta watch out for what happens with these things here, because we have another subdivision that's coming to conclusion. That has about a bunch of open space that hasn't been turned over to appropriate entities
Gotcha.
that I know of at this time.
Yep.
The intent they're asking for the parcel covenant.
Yep.
Those two lots, and their intent is to merge them together and sell it as one larger plot.
Gotcha.
Is that gonna be a one buildable lot?
Yes,
When they merge everything together, it's gonna be one buildable lot
Yes, even with the wetlands and the stream there.
somewhere,
the
just not there.
proposal that we have, I actually have a building permit application for it.
Okay.
And they've started work, is there's a little square of area in this corner that they can get a house in, meet the setback requirements, meet the conservation issues. Yeah, we have minimum lot size, we have no maximum lot size, you can have.
Okay, yeah, right, okay.
How big are those, Mr.
8
Metzger?
acres?
One is 5.1.
Yeah, this is like 5 something or other, this is about a 60,000 square foot lot here by
Yeah.
comparison. These are, like 45s, so.
So was part of the pink originally that, or part of that 25 acre, where's the 25 acres?
Well, 25% of the raw land has to be given as open space.
Yeah.
And the area that they took in that flexible subdivision was here.
Okay.
So this space here is at least 25% of the raw area.
Okay.
And there are also, just as a note, some other considerations about amount, you can't give us all the wetlands of
No.
You gotta give us some dry land. And access.
And that's not deeded to the town as of
It's
yet.
not deeded to the town, it's not deeded to the Worcester Preservation Trust, it is currently owned by the Burlingame family.
Is it surveyed and has any of that?
Well, it was surveyed as part, or it was,
Well, bounds and everything.
So
I do believe that there are some means and bounds, for that particular lot.
So how do we close on that? Or is it just?
I think it's passed, isn't it? Since the town accepted the road.
so that's,
Right, it's already passed.
I don't know that the town would be prohibited from accepting it. I think that's a question for legal counsel. I think what happened is that in transition, as things moved on, that issue was not checked off in the box during the acceptance process. You know, yep, the road's done, the streetlights are in, the trees are in.
Yeah, and 20 years have passed, so now it becomes a question,
Yeah.
a legal matter. In the town, the planning board enforce that to be preserved as open space to some entity, the town or some other organization. Because a lot of time has passed, so we have to make sure we.
The wishes and intents could also be honored by the developer to good faith transfer that to the town now.
Well, I mean, they
That's
might
part
be
of the thing.
perfectly willing to, we haven't had that discussion with them yet. So they might be willing to do that and save a lot of. You know, headaches on both sides, we just haven't had that conversation with them.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Lisa, are you aware of any of this?
This came up from an abutter a few years back. I don't remember the details.
Okay,
So I was aware that it was open space, but CHPT's never been approached to accept.
okay. It's not in any of your figures as to how many acres that's open space land in Charlton.
As far as the open space and rec plan goes, or, I mean, it's not in our Charlton Heritage Preservation Trust
Okay.
inventory,
Okay,
and we don't own that.
right,
But like Kurt said, there's another subdivision that has, I think, 3 parcels of open space that have also not been conveyed. And as we moved forward doing flexible subdivision open space, we made it a requirement that the open space be conveyed prior to the start of construction, and they were not allowed to stage anything on it, so that through the years, that process has gotten a little bit cleaner.
Excellent. All right, any other questions about releasing the covenants on lots 12B 29, 12B 34? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, go right ahead, Anne Marie.
and S3, I believe, right? Or I'm not sure what it is on the assessors, but
Hey, I was just reading off what was on the agenda. That's where I got those lot
Okay.
numbers.
so we need the lot release on the lot that's on Elliott Drive as well as on Scott Drive.
Correct.
Because
and I-
those are all gonna be combined into one lot.
Yep,
Okay.
Okay, so, yeah, Mr.
Go
Chairman,
right
I'm
ahead.
reading off this map and.
yep,
It's 12B29, which potentially would be numbered 12 Elliott Drive
Yep.
and 12B34, which is the lot on Scott Drive. We
Yeah.
would have an S number
Okay.
from their stuff, and the other one would have an E number.
okay, perfect. Thank you for clarification.
My question
Go right
was,
ahead.
an abutter called me, that pink area on the assessor's field card states green space, not open space.
Yeah,
And it says unbuildable green space.
The,
So is that different than open space?
Well, I have no idea what the assessor's field card, I know what the plan over there says, and it says open space.
yeah, well, it's
That
actually,
is the plan.
The,
but-
the pink one.
it actually says the wording is open land, it doesn't even refer to open space, but this was done in the 80s.
But the,
you
yeah,
know,
the field
where-
card, 'cause actually it was on Board of Health when that subdivision went in.
yeah.
And they were giving wet parcels around town as the open space. But I was just curious why, that it said green, unbuildable. The back said open. But we've been getting, they were taxed on a very low amount because of that field card saying
Well, the
unbuildable.
pink lot in its current condition or configuration, I should say, is an unbuildable lot.
Because it
They
lacks
need to
frontage.
combine that
And that's
with the
why the
lot on
frontage.
Yeah.
Scott Drive to make it a buildable lot, because it doesn't have adequate frontage on Elliott Drive. The road ends like partway through the lot. so it doesn't have enough frontage on Elliott Drive.
Okay, yeah, I was aware of that.
So
I was
I
just hoping
combined the
maybe
two
we-
lots, so we will put in one more house off from Elliott Drive.
Maybe that would help them, you know, they paid a low value on the back land that for tax purposes, maybe they would give it.
Now it's
Good
gonna
thing.
become, for lack of a better term, taxable property, once they build a house on it.
All right. All right, do we have a motion for, partial release of the covenants located at Glenview subdivision states for lots 12B29 and 12B34?
I'll make a motion for partial release of the covenants 12B29 and 12B34 Glenview subdivision.
For a second,
For discussion, yeah, I'll second it. When this happens though, are we gonna clear up this open space issue or?
I think that should be a separate
Separate thing?
discussion because
Okay.
it's strictly the covenants. We're
Okay.
talking about the release on these two, it can be a future item, I presume, just so we don't.
Okay,
Go
Although,
ahead.
so the lot on Scott Drive is still part of that subdivision. So do we release that final covenant on that last lot in that subdivision before we get that open space recorded? Technically, it's part of that subdivision, so it's the last lot that has a covenant on it. Once we close that covenant, that division, that subdivision is done.
Hmm.
So, I mean, we could make a statement that does not get closed until that open space is officially transferred over to Charlton Land Trust or some other.
Mr. Chairman,
Go
I
right
have
ahead,
a
Anne Marie.
question.
Yeah,
Is the open space you're referring to on the extension? But
yes,
on a different plan? With a different
Correct.
approval in the nineties?
Well, it's on the same plan as the lot on Scott Drive, according to the paper I have in
No,
front of me.
I don't, I'm not sure about that. Kurt
Okay,
has a
well,
big plan there. Maybe he can address that, but
when was 12B34 created? Was it created with Scott Drive extension, or was it created with original,
I believe that
Elliott-
this three
Elliott
lot
Drive.
on Scott Drive was part of the Scott Drive extension.
I think so.
no,
But I
wait a
don't-
minute.
See how you can. You know, the town of Charlton has accepted this way
yeah,
and
But
all
it
the
still
infrastructure.
has the covenant on that one lot in that property. That can
And
remain
what-
open until,
And what does that do?
Actually, I stand corrected, it's actually on the original.
it is on the original.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
thank you for looking at that, Randy. So it's gonna have to be a separate item.
Agree with that
We
now?
can't time together.
Yeah, that's the difference. I agree with that. I'm in favor of looking at what we do with the open space, but I did do that.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Any more discussion on it, Gene?
No.
Okay, you did a second with the discussion, right?
pardon?
Yes, you did second.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Unanimous, thank you. And Kurt, did you do this map?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for doing that.
Before we move.
Yeah.
on, Mr. Hurley, I was looking at the actual language the plan board needs to sign. It says November, no, it doesn't have a date of not 2003. Does this need to be updated for December? Or can we cross it out? Is that gonna be acceptable to the registry of deed? Or we're gonna have to have a clean copy saying December, because it's now December 6th.
Are you asking me that question?
Yeah. 'Cause I mean, they
I'm
can sign it, but if it's not gonna be acceptable to the registry of deeds because it says November blank, you know, 2000.
Well, that needs to be completed. Can that just be filled in? No? Because the meeting was originally in November and then it was continued to December. I can send over a new, I can send over something for signature, but I can't delay it to the next meeting. And I could send it over to you in the morning.
I can ask the planning, if you can send it over to Can you also CC Jane Garney on sending over a clean copy?
I can do that, but
Um,
my question is to you is, will that delay? Will that be delayed until the next meeting?
No, we would try to, request the planning board members to come in, on their individually, just to sign it, once we have a clean copy.
Okay,
So
if
that
I,
we-
if I were to hang up from you and send it right now, would you get it?
No, because we're not, I'm on Zoom, I don't have internet access
Okay.
right now.
All right. I'll send it over first thing in the morning.
Okay, sounds
All right.
good.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night. All right, next up, we have a request for approval for a decommissioning bond and
Thank
Sturbridge
you.
Road solar
No
farm.
problem. Can I get a couple of cookies?
You colored outside the
LLC,
lines.
Sturbridge Road
That's
solar.
I know that. I know I got a little confused, but.
Have a cookie, you did a good job.
You did a good coloring.
All right, in our packet, we have the, request for approval for decommissioning bond from Care Corporation. On November 19th, 2020, Purdue Engineer, Grace Engineering reviewed the applicant's proposal bond in the 221,200 contained on the revised decommissioning plan, and concluded the decommissioning cost of $44 per megawatt was appropriate for a system this type. The applicant has procured a surety bond in that amount, copies attached to this request. And I think in the packet, we have a copy of our.
Yeah, we have a copy from the applicant.
Yeah.
On the decommission bond, proposed decommission bonds.
And then we also have our decommissioning bond policy. What do we have it at 100,000 per megawatt?
Yes,
And it came in at $44. Am I getting on this? Am I reading it wrong? I just wanna make sure.
I fact checked it, so I could smooth over it.
total amount.
Little bit of a difference there.
221,200 and it worked out to be $44 a megawatt.
And who came up with that number?
Graves? Well, that was the applicant's proposed.
Okay. All right.
No.
Well, I do not. Thank you.
So how many megawatts is this one on North Sturbridge Road?
0.74.
6.74. Okay, thank you.
Chairman,
Go right ahead.
it looks like the site plan was approved before the decommissioning bond policy was enacted. So we didn't have a decommissioning bond policy, is that correct?
It's up to the purview. of the
11/26/18.
board,
Thank
When
you.
this was approved, it was prior to the planning board creating the decommission bond policy.
Yeah.
So
Got it.
even though it was proposed afterwards.
Yeah.
They were going under the guidelines of what the current bylaws were in place as far as decommission bonds, so.
But we can't enact.
Correct.
the
Yeah,
code on top
It's a
of
gray area. for the
I thought
the authority.
I was under the impression we could increase it to what it is since it's.
Because they're
Coming back
proposing
before us.
221, the actual calculation would be 674,000 under the new
Yeah.
bond policy. The only way that we can get it to a more reasonable number is that in the decommissioning bond policy, it says that we can reevaluate every 5 years. So in year 5, we can then step it up to a reasonable number that is 100,000 per megawatt. But
When was the initial approval? No, it'd be 5 years from the initial approval, right?
from 18, yeah, I don't know what.
It was,
23. 11/26, yeah.
11/26/18, so it's been 5 years. Prices have gone up.
We have that 5-year thing currently in our,
It is,
It
if
is?
you look at this bond policy that Jane
yeah,
left for us on the last paragraph.
last page.
All the considering bonds.
Yes,
subject
5-year
five-year
review. Good
amount of
pickup.
bond adjusted, that plan.
Yep.
So. So it was approved in 18, the site plan was approved. They haven't paid anything in a bond yet, they were just agreeing on a bond amount right now in 2023.
Correct.
Right.
And we can revise the numbers that they have,
Yeah,
to meet our policy. And what was that new number?
It's
it's 100,000 per megawatt.
674,000.
Yeah.
So, 674 is the DC, megawatt? I thought it was.
Yeah, on this
So
November.
5,000 is the AC.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. 5 megawatts is the AC, 6.5 is the DC. What is, does our bylaw limit DC or AC?
It's
The AC?
The solar committee requested everything in DC to keep it continuous, and that's
Okay.
how the SPARK program is to pay. It does pay their benefits out, so,
Okay,
and that's what the field actually produces, and that's easier for us to set amounts on, because once it goes through the inverter, it goes up and down based
Okay.
for the alternating current.
Yeah, so if we want to consider the 5, this is now at the 5-year.
Yeah.
Review period, then we can apply decommissioning policy.
Yeah, and, as Lori Dignan has done a lot of research on and everything, they have now found that solar panels aren't as recyclable as they have been originally.
so,
Yeah, sold as, so, there's a 10 more. So as a result, if the town ever ended up having to do a cleanup on the solar field, it's gonna cost far more than would be original, like glass and metal panels. It's not that simple anymore. So, you know, the new planning board decommissioning bond policy is a much closer from a dollar amount to what the actual cost to the town would be, and the rate we're going, it could be worse, you know, but we have to go by what we know at this point in time, so.
Mr.
Go
Chair,
right ahead.
I think if I give you this information, it's gonna answer all the questions that are floating around, if I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
So if you remember, our consulting engineers were given a task to validate the amounts that we were given. However, with lack of any guidance from the DEP, their hands were tied. So we got worksheets done that had no disposal costs, which, as you know, is the most expensive part of decommissioning the solar field. And as far as what was given to us by the Park Corporation, originally this project started much smaller, and they came in for a change, and they told planning that because of the fact of the spacing of the panels and more efficient panels, that the project now was 6.7 megawatts. When I sat down and compared both plans, you could see they cleared to the property boundaries and added 1,800 panels. If you remember, we were here during one of the hearings, and the conservation agent was also here and confirmed that the board had that 0 point before them because they went into some buffer zones. So that's how they increased the project to 6.74 megawatts DC. So that's something to remember.
So they've gone beyond their borders in the site plan with the panels.
Yeah, conservation dealt with them and there's no buffer zone. It goes right up to the property boundary. But
That's violation of the site plan too, isn't it?
I'm not sure how it stands. You guys approved it after that.
Here, they did come in for a modification, which they had stated that it was gonna be within the same area.
I thought the panels were gonna be in the same footprint is what they said.
Yeah.
It wasn't gonna go outside of that footprint. It sounds like they did.
But they were getting more.
Well, they at
panels
least
because
cleared
the
them.
Panels are small.
Yeah. I don't
Yes,
know.
yes, yeah.
So, the decommissioning bond was decided over 3 years ago, and since then, costs have increased dramatically. Like I said, the worksheets, really lacked cost to dispose or recycle once it was removed. And now there's more and more information coming out on the hazards as far as leachates from the PFAS, lead, and the chromium. They're finally being done. The industry's catching up. You know, we were the low fruit, which is why we are inundated with solar. So the lack of information and guidance from the DEP is why, like Ty and Bond approved that solar bond, where I called them and said, why do you guys keep doing this? And they said, well, we're licensed by the state and the state has no law saying they can't go in a landfill. However, the boards can come up with a reasonable bond amount that you feel will protect the town's financial and health. But something new came up. Where am I here? On November, he stated the $44 a megawatt. If you look on the worksheet and some of the attached paperwork, the EPA came out with a study. It was done through NREL, which is the National Renewable Energy Lab. And finally, a number that we can quote, we can actually have some agency that's helping us instead of people just saying, oh, if you read the worksheets, they're very vague. So based on them, it's $440 a kilowatt. So that's where I actually sent Graves an email today saying, hey, where'd you get the $44? Because I'm seeing this, and I had sent him the same report. And this is sanctioned by the EPA, so finally something. So it came out to $458,000 per megawatt. So looking at that, Charlton's 100,000 a megawatt is very generous.
So they did kilowatt, not megawatt.
Well,
So,
yeah, and that's, 1,000 kilowatts is a megawatt, so
right.
$44 a kilowatt is $440 a megawatt.
All right.
So if we I just think that, Charlton has been more than reasonable. And to back up what Evan said, yes, the AG's office did deny some bylaws recently, but the one that I believe he's talking about is the town refused batteries altogether. And if you remember us sitting here talking about it,
Yeah, that was.
in the Northeast, solar isn't as efficient as the South. So we might as well have some batteries to make a fairly decent green better. So we at least have, freestanding solar projects allowed, and we allow every solar array to have a battery to make them. It just makes sense.
Currently, the state of Massachusetts is concentrating their tax credits and everything on batteries, not so much solar anymore, so it, Evans we find that the state's going to really back the solar field is really really pushing to get battery storage because, like I said, we have at least 2 solar fields. Sturban Solar is going to be the same thing. They're going to build it, but they can't turn it on because National Grid can't handle the power coming from the solar field. We have one that's been built for years and you still can't turn it on.
Yeah.
So, you know, they can,
I had trouble maintaining lines, for God's sake.
yeah, but that, I mean, you can move telephones at Amazon to shore, but anyway, they, so it's really not the town of Charlton only that's gonna hold them up. It's like the infrastructure is not there for solar. The current solar field that, you know, the average of 5 megawatts, getting a 100 megawatts, you know, so.
Well, to help people that might be listening at home, you know, the decommissioning bond is an insurance policy. We're not asking them to cough up 440,000 a megawatt. It's merely an insurance policy. And because they have to be renewed consistently, it's a burden for the town to keep up and keep track. So
It
that's
is.
why I urge you to request 25% in an escrow account that follows the parcel, not the landowner or the leasing. It's then it prevents it. If somebody goes belly up or they transfer ownership and we don't know within 60 days, some of these bonds are done. And we're
Yeah.
stuck with nothing.
In some of the existing fields, we have it where they're paying like $3,000 a year and everything, and we have to sit there and go, okay, where's this check go to? You know,
Yeah,
what
parcel number is so
field do we
important.
apply it to?
Um,
Very difficult.
I mean, that's been a problem for a couple of years now. How do we fix that?
Well, the new decommission and bond, if you do the 25% upfront, so you have a cash amount, then they do a surety for the rest. It's a much simpler process. It's much simpler for the town to keep track of.
And it
And we
allows
have,
cash to go
You
after
know,
the
some
bond.
actual
It costs money to get the bond.
money to get started if we ever had to go that route to actually do a cleanup on the property. At least,
How many facilities have posted that 25%?
I think the only ones are the, because they came into effect is the Osgood Fitzgerald Road facility and that Colvin Road facility. I think those two facilities were the most recent. And I think both those facilities had to post the,
Can we, it would come from you, it would carry more, but maybe confirm that, because I did a public records request and there was less than 5 bonds. And,
I would have, yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's just a
confirm,
quick
those
email
are the
coming
most
from you
recent ones
versus
that-
me saying, hey, can you confirm that there's 25% in an account?
And I could be incorrect, because that would be kind of COVID and everything, so maybe they were approved prior to that.
Yeah.
I have to go back and do my research. I
So-
really,
I'm sorry, so Sturbridge Road Solar LLC. You can find everything online. They are ultimately owned by the largest renewable energy company in the world, NextEra Energy, which also owns Florida Light and Power. I put it in your packet. Everything goes through Juno Beach, Florida. So this is what we're up against. The developers come in trying to get the low decommissioning bond, but I would hate to think that the largest renewable energy company in the world wouldn't confirm that, yeah, we need a little more than what we're getting. They want to be green right through the end.
Right. You said the 25% deposit and that follows the property
Yeah, the parcel number,
parcel number.
because even I went online to see the value of the solar fields we currently have. And it's very hard when we call them Sturbridge Road Solar. And you're like, well, what parcel is it? And there's 2 parcels and it's just confusing. Whereas if we do everything by parcel number, then if Sunpin buys it or Lone Star
Right.
or what,
Put covenant on the deed, not the owner.
yeah.
But if we have, and it's right in the decommissioning policy to subject to review every 5 years, that could include changing the language here, 25% cash down, 75% letter of credit, change that to follows the parcel with a covenant on the deed, and we change the math to $458,000 per megawatt, not $105 per megawatt, get that on new business for the town meeting to vote on.
But the town meeting doesn't even need to vote on, that's a policy set by the planning board.
Yeah.
There we go.
The bylaws currently state an amount agreed upon between, I believe you guys and the tax
Mhm.
collector.
Uh-huh.
So it's there. And then bonds are not grandfathered because the site plan and the subdivision control law, bonds are totally separate. And I don't believe we've ever had anyone discuss a 5-year bond review.
Yeah.
We
Um,
actually,
nobody-
when this policy was created, we did run it by legal counsel to make sure that it was actually enforceable, so that, we didn't want to do something that would be out of the realm of what we were allowed to do. Legal counsel did state that at the time that it was something the planning board could create and be enforceable.
So the 5 years would be 2025, right? It would be the 5 year since we enacted this. We could get at it.
We can, the decommissioning says 5 years for the site plan that they submit. That we could renew a policy every 60 days if we wanted to. We don't have to wait 5 years
It
for a
doesn't
policy.
matter. I was thinking it would matter for 5 years since we instated the policy. No, so you're saying,
We haven't agreed on a bond yet, so we haven't agreed on a bond price yet, so we can change that now. I don't see any reason why we need to go with their numbers here.
Yeah, I make a motion to deny the decommissioning bond policy for Sturdy Road Solar Farm LLC.
Can we,
Can we state a new amount in it? That would be acceptable to the board? Per our decommission bond policy, we adopted in 2020.
Yeah, I just state the date of the decommissioned bond policy, so it's on the record.
You want to do that all? in
I'm
one
doing it
motion,
as an option, rather
Deny.
than just denying their amount.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or we say we-
Two of those.
Deny their calculation and substitute per the decommissioning policy based on a 5-year review.
Yep.
$674,000.
Correct.
Yeah, that's my motion.
The 20% in cash escrow.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
All right, all those in favor?
so what was it, one more time, just to be clear?
So the motion would be deny their original request for a decommissioning bond of $221,000. And instead, per the 5-year review allowed in the decommissioning bond policy to ask them for a $674,000 bond.
25% in cash, 75% in cash.
But they don't have a bond,
At this point, they do not.
so how can you do something they do not have?
Well, this is a request for a bond.
They're requesting for a bond.
Yes, but where
We could just.
our language was to review current bonds, not. So if I was them, I would say, well, when we went in, I have 5 years because I don't even have a bond yet. I'll get the bond from the previously understood bond amounts, and then in 5 years, you can come and review it.
No,
But we haven't approved any bond yet, so we're
They don't
approving
have
the
one.
bond right now. They don't have the bond, we're approving a bond right now, they're giving us a number that they think
No, I understand that,
is
but
suitable to them, we're not agreeing with the engineer, we're saying, no, the engineer is wrong. This is what we will provide.
Per our
This is
policy.
per our policy.
go for it.
So that bond was determined by our engineer
just
4 years ago.
Yeah, just,
And now we say, no, that's not enough, we don't agree with that, this is what we require.
again, they never had a bond anyway.
Never had one anyway. So the 5-year review is
Kind of like the open space that's
Yes.
not bought.
Right next
Well,
to it.
they do.
Maybe they put
yeah.
a solar on that open space, that no one owns. It's crazy town.
These
Walk
ponds are
on
great.
Don't laugh.
Right, have a second, right?
Yes, we have motion.
All right, all those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
They're also asking for one more request for a field change.
Yep, they're looking for a field change for a driveway location and underground wiring. At the solar facility, Graves did a quick letter dated November 1st. First, looking to change the previously proposed underground conduit throughout the array to an above-ground precast concrete ballast system. And there's a shift in the location of approximately 200-foot-long section of the perimeter access road to avoid reported ledge removal. The access road in question is on the north end of the array, would shift about 30 feet further into the array area. Previously proposed perimeter fence lines and limits of tree clearing are not affected. Stormwater management would also not be impacted by this proposed change. It's an alteration, seems minor. We have a motion to approve the field change request for the driveway location underground wiring at the Sturbridge Road Solar Facility.
And now has Graves in a site visit, this is from a site visit?
Yeah, we actually, yeah. Ray's been there, I've been there, conservation's been there. Everybody's been there, so yes, we.
Did we clarify that their solar array has not gone beyond the bounds of what was indicated in the site plan?
Yes, actually, and have that verified, they have to mark it out or whatever they have to do before we actually even start installing the panels.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
So is this ballasted running along the side of the road now, above power?
yeah, well, that's, they have to run into the town of Sturbridge, so it's coming up, North Sturbridge Road, going to cross Route 49 into the town of Sturbridge.
No,
But the ballast system's within the array, it's within the property.
Within the property.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, I thought you.
Within the property, no, yeah. Yes,
So it's not gonna be affected by driving into.
No.
I make a motion to approve the deal change number 3 at the North Sturbridge Road Solar Project.
All right, so a second,
I'll second.
all those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. All right, next up, we have a public hearing for stone reduced frontage lot and common driveway special permits on Gale Road. They have asked to be continued until January 3rd, 2024. We have a motion to continue this public hearing. The stone reduced frontage lot and common driveway.
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing for, it's the stone reuse frontage lot, common driveway, continue to be January 3rd, 2024.
Thank you for allowing me to.
Second.
All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. All right, next up, we have a continued public hearing for Curtis Hill Estate. Curtis Hill's flexible subdivision plan, Old Spence Road.
Well, that's where everybody's walking out with the cookies are.
Will I cook?
In a minute, yes, please.
Right. So. We have a packet here with the plan.
Also, there is, Mike Andre's most recent review.
Yep.
With the application.
Okay, if I share the screen, everybody can see that.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. This is pretty much where we're at from. Well, for what? We might be limited on certain areas. But, we've modified the layout slightly since the last time we were here, more so with the open space than anything else. We still have the 72 lots. And, based on the initial round of comments that we got from Graves,
we've addressed those and, did get the second round of comments back. So we're working on addressing those. But as far as the layout goes, the biggest question I believe that we have with the planning board is really the open space requirements. And what we can and can't do as far as the lay of the land goes. We worked a little bit with Charlton Heritage, and Preservation Trust. To go through and get bigger chunks of land. They would be more accessible. And I know one of the discussion items is how we get from the main development over to this open space A. So this open space A is connected through a cattle tunnel. Which we have a few pictures to show you the condition of that. So that's the current condition of the cattle crossing, that goes into the railroad. And that was taken just the other day. So there's a chicken wire type fence that's up there, but it's about 6 feet in height, if I recall correctly, please.
Yep.
And you can see through to the other side. And we did pass along just the other day some deed information, and police attorney has also looked at the statutes and limitations associated with the railroad, and he can talk a little bit more about that.
So if I could, the whole purpose of identifying this and everything else was just more to determine lot count, and anything else, and whether it could be used and for accessibility. It's called the cattle tunnel. But there is an easement that goes back, I wanna say 1908, and I mean, obviously, if cows can use it, the farmer could use it, so it's be able to use by people, so and the big part about that is that the statute at the time, believe it or not, from 1894, I'm going back in history here, but my lawyer picked it out for me, and here's what it says. When any person or corporation is cut off from access to lands owned by such person or corporation by the laying out of a railroad or widening of the roadbed of such railroad, when no compensation, which there was no compensation given at the time, you can see that on the deed. When no compensation has been paid by the company owning or operating said railroad for cutting off access to said lands, or agreement made relative thereto, the railroad commissioners, after due notice to the parties in interest and a hearing under such rules as they adopt for proceedings under this act, shall, if they deem it expedient, order a crossing to be made and maintained at the expense of the railroad company, and shall specify definitely the character of such crossing, meaning cattle crossing or whatever, and when the same must be used. So not only do they make the crossing, but they've been maintaining it for 100 and something years. I mean, I was there yesterday, and it's in good shape, with the exception that wire fence that Mr. Castesian put up way back. It is more than accessible. It's more than walkable. I mean, you could go through it. I mean, the cows went through it. I don't know how, but they did. It's tiny for a cow, but I'm sure it worked. So as far as defining whether or not it's accessible and it can be walked to and things like that, so that we can use it for lot count. I mean, it exists, it's been there, it can be used, at any time. And I think Charlton has one under Route 20 somewhere too, don't they? Something like that?
That one's in very good shape. Looks like it's better shape than that one.
This one is better than that one?
No, I said the one under Route 20 is much better.
This one's pretty good though. I mean, I would have no problem getting through it. If I was a cow, I might be a little nervous, but but other than that, I mean, it's certainly accessible.
That was another shot. Well.
On this the ground rod.
Ground rod,
Yeah.
and so
It's
that's 4 feet right here, and they didn't raise it
Gotcha.
up, right, so it's
Yep.
probably about 6 feet.
Okay.
How wide is it right to there?
I had to guess, I'd say it's about 4.5, 5 feet long.
Go right ahead, Don.
So would that mean the railroad will continually take care of it and the town would not have to.
Yeah, that's what the statute says. It was statute at the time, the one that was made at the railroad. And they've been, I mean, obviously they've been maintaining it. It's nice. It's in good shape.
And that railroad is still used.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was there the other day. I guess it's trespassing. I walked up the tracks to get to it. There's a damn train coming. I went running in the woods and I rocked into the thing, but
They hammer that home at 4:45 in
Yeah.
the morning too, when they come by. They could clear, not clear one, you can hear it good.
yes.
Yep,
I can hear from my house.
yeah,
Mhm.
You can hear it most of it.
yep.
I hope that solves the issue.
Well, if we submit this as part of our open space, does that make the town responsible for the maintenance of that tunnel?
No, it's always.
Sounds like it's on-
Oh, it's always on the railroad.
Always on the rail.
But what about the safety of that tunnel? That's the
Yeah,
only
if
thing
somebody
that
got
concerns me.
hurt in
Somebody,
that
I mean,
tunnel,
it may be, the tunnel itself may be in good shape, but I'm not sure I'd allow my kids to play in there at this point.
Well, I mean, I guess all we're trying to determine is whether or not we can use that area for lockdown.
Space.
And if, as long as we can use it for lockdown, it's accessible, that's the key. I don't know. I mean, it's been there for 120 years and never had an issue, so.
Now,
And
does
it
this,
has to, from a structural standpoint, it does have to stay somewhat structurally sound, because train goes over,
Mhm,
so.
mhm. Sound and safe though are exactly, it's sound for the train to go over it. Is it safe to be in it when the train's going over it? That's the question.
The second part of it says contiguous open space,
Contiguous open space.
and this is not contiguous. The
Now,
rail is
does
actually a
this,
separate.
this open space connects to some land trust space.
Yeah.
Have you been up there? Is
We
it
have not walked it, but now
Okay.
that the tree cover is down.
it's a
and we
little
can
easier
see,
now?
It'd be a little bit easier, so we were just talking about that, outside. I do have a question.
Go ahead.
if I could. I might have already asked this, but, the cow tunnel does not exit upon the proposed open space. So where is it?
It connects the two pieces so that the easement would continue down to connect that piece.
So is that the cow tunnel at the very top left-hand corner?
Right.
Yeah, right.
Right there.
Yep.
Okay.
The lot on the other side of the tunnel is privately owned, Lisa, that's not part of the,
It's part of a parcel. It's actually under the same deed, I believe.
Yeah, that's, I think you said that at the last.
Yes.
meeting.
That open space parcel across the way, so. My understanding is from the documents that, Clea and his attorney had come up with was, at one point, that land was contiguous. And then when the railroad wanted to come through, part of that document was saying that they can't stop that the contiguity.
They have to give you access.
And they have to give you access to your land, so that's the way that the railroad chose to give them the land was. I'm guessing that probably back in the day, that whole area, even to the north and, was farmland at one point as well, so. To get from point A to point B, that's the place that they chose to put that tunnel, so you could access the land across the way. So now that parcel, when it was split with the railroad, now you lose that direct connectivity to the parcel. But the railroad's intent was not to disrupt that connectivity, which is why they had that trail, that tunnel.
So the land is not, so that land has been subdivided after the tunnel was.
That land was always part of, and it's, I believe it's been part of that.
Correct. So does so when you walk across the tunnel into the other open space, you have to walk on someone's other property to get to the open space?
Yes, you
I
do.
was just saying that green section does not go all the way to the tunnel, so that,
May I just show you?
so you'd have to walk either on someone else's property. or
This
get
is the
inside of the
proposed
track.
open space. The far one. This is our land.
Right here.
This is LFD. Cow tunnels above
it doesn't,
where our
It
open
doesn't.
space is.
Yeah, all right, so.
So we would have to, it would have to be very clear for us that this, that the deed easement allows us to walk through LFB's the goat farm, to walk through LFB to get to our open space. This is the proposed open space. This is us. This
That's
is
all.
LFB.
Okay,
The
and that's
cow
where the town tunnel was actually
is
part
about-
of on their property.
Correct.
Oh,
So we just would have to make sure that the deed actually allows us to, if they were to grant us the open space with the easement, that that easement allows us to cross over LFB's property to access that open space.
It says that in the deed, because those two, that's what the purpose of that tunnel was for, was to connect those two pieces, because the railroad cut it off. And that was all part of their land at the time. So that deed allows that.
But it's not
If
anymore.
somebody comes out and say the neighboring property owner will not grant an easement, that means somebody's gonna walk down the tracks basically.
Which is
The side of the
trespassing,
track.
it's also trespassing on railroad property, so.
Yeah, so, and then who's like responsible should somebody get hurt walking down the side of the track?
It doesn't, it comes out way past the tracks. You can't go near the tracks with that.
Well, you have to walk on railroad property to get to.
No, it goes to the other side, Randy. I didn't mean to cut you off, but it goes all the way through. And the tracks are like way back. The tunnel's long, very long. Comes out like right here. That's.
So as part of our criteria when we're working with developers doing open space, and we've worked with Cleve before, because we do have our own attorney that we work with, so we could work with Cleve to just have him review all the deeds and confirm for us that that easement, if that easement does go through LFB and provides access to that open space parcel, then if, as long as the developer has the right to convey that easement, and we just ran into this on another one of our properties, then, you know, it would be considered accessible. Now, whether that meets our open space regulations or requirements for contiguous, to me, if it connects, it's, you know, it's connected, but that's, you know, how you interpret the bylaw, that I can't answer.
And that's the cattle pass, that's the plan that's referenced in the deed. That we provided. So if you can see up there, there's the,
Yeah.
it has that path that comes from the concrete culvert cattle pass that travels down and it goes across to Gaglio. And then it comes down and connects to.
Yeah, that's all part of the easement right here.
That's all part of the deed reference.
Yeah, that will
Good.
hook.
Ah, good. It is already.
Yeah.
It's been in place.
This is a plan from 1908.
Yeah, this one is,
And that's what we would have, that's exactly, that was.
1988,
this one is from 1988, but this is the one that's referenced.
Oh.
It's a 3-sheet set that shows the entire parcel with track 1 and track 2. So you have 14.72 acres and the connectivity between them.
Now, is that where you were saying, Mr. Costigian put a fence
He
along
put a
that?
fence along the other side of the railroad, because he had a title problem way back. So what he did was around his entire piece of land, I think it was 200 acres, all total, but he put a fence. And then had sat for 20 years, and then his title got locked. But that, other than that, I mean, it would just obviously you have to take that fence down, but because it doesn't mean anything now, but when you can access that land, no problem.
Oh, so his fence is not along that line of easement
No, it's not that way, it's this way.
crossing, it
Yeah.
goes across the cattle pass.
Yeah, and I mean, it's literally, you could pull it down with a hand now, it's been there since the 80s.
Good research, huh? Did a lot of
Little
history.
history.
there, yeah.
So the railroad will let you walk on their property away from the tracks. Into your easement.
Correct. Yeah.
Per this.
Yeah, you can see the cattle path, that the concrete culvert goes underneath the tracks,
Yeah,
and then Because
Just through the,
Little
yeah,
fast.
little hook in there.
And that's it, Easton, you know.
I think that's definitely part of the deed.
Well, I mean, from our previous discussion, this will have to be in place before with the open space, right? Before we even. We go, right?
I think a big part of this was just whether or not to determine lot count.
Yeah.
That for sure is accessible and it's connected and it's what it needs to be, I guess, in order to use it for lot count. So I don't know how many lots it added, but it's not as, I mean, it's obviously gonna be conveyed to the land trust or, you know, as long as they'll take it. If and when we get approval for it, and they can use that, that connectivity. Now, can you get to your land that abuts that anyway?
Yes,
So if
through
you,
Cranberry Meadow roadside.
so even if you had to, you could come in from your land, you know, at the end of the day.
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, so it's really just whether or not it has connectivity, so we could use it for lot count. I think that's pretty proven.
Kurt and I actually did a rough estimate, you know, based on the numbers that are on the plan and everything. You need somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 lots if you don't count the piece on the other side. Maintain the 25% of open space.
I appreciate the creativeness and as long as it's legal and as long as people can walk there and get to there and as long as it's in place before. Because we don't. Yes, again, to our previous discussion this evening, you can't have just. Well, we said it was okay, but we thought it was, but. I guess we should have this.
Oh, no, it's there. It's definitely already been there for 120 years.
Yeah, but deeded, signed, sealed and delivered.
To you guys. Oh, yeah, done.
And that's it. And you're comfortable with that.
It has to go through my board, because they haven't seen this revised plan yet, or the new deed information, or the plan showing what that you circled in red. The board hasn't seen that yet, so I will share that with them. And as far as the easement, if you're referring to the town, but the land would be, we would own this
Yeah,
land
the
in
trust.
fee
Yep.
through the trust,
Through the
so
trust.
there would be no liability on the town's part, because you wouldn't own the easement, you wouldn't have that, you wouldn't own the easement. The trust would have the easement.
And you're comfortable with that cattle tunnel and. all
We
that?
haven't seen it yet,
Okay.
so I can't really answer that until we go do a site visit and, you know, do our due diligence.
Is the property cleared? Is there access to that or is it a good hike through the woods?
I recommend going up the railroad tracks. It was a lot easier. There's a lot of pickup bushes in there. That's all I can say. But once I got off the, once I got right off the side when the train was coming, I actually walked right into it.
You were there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like you said, we could go in from our property on Cranberry
Oh, yeah.
Road side, and
Yeah.
it's probably more cleared on that side than it would be on the steep side of the other side of the tracks.
Okay.
At least to look at the tunnel and, you know, what's out there.
Do you have that other book, 1871, 599, 600, is that listed in this application at all, this particular easement that you found?
Actually, hold on. It's actually on the plan set. So our.
There is a plan from like 1899 or 1908 or something like that. That is on record.
You go to sheet, if you go to sheet 10 of 51. That deed book and page is referenced right on the plan. I've not zoomed in right up on the screen, but it's right up on.
Oh, there it is, thank you, yeah.
So it's 590, it's pages 599 and 600, it does go on to 2 pages. Because they didn't have
Yeah.
separate pages back then.
And does that show So that's the
That's the culvert.
culvert access easement. What about that? The other easement is the more important to get through LFB or around LFB to your open space.
We can add that to the plan. It's a recorded plan off of the one that, this one that I showed you.
Yeah,
So we can certainly, I think they did it from a structural standpoint on the definitive. So we can add these in, again, that's from the deeds and that's a recorded plan. This one's from 1988.
Oh.
It was done, based off of that deed.
okay.
And it's a 3-sheet set, so there's an overall plan and then 2 others with the top and the bottom half of the site. So that can be added to the plan, and then I believe. Let me just take a look and see, it might be on the, so there's the tunnel access, but
Mhm.
you can kind of see where but it doesn't extend, so we can certainly add what's on
Yeah,
our plans from that other plan, so it's clearly shown on there. Again, these are
With
plans.
there is an actual easement language from that tunnel over to this property. If you're adding, putting an easement on somebody else's property,
No, that path and description is already in the deed.
this one coming in.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
And then that other drawing that you're showing was from 1978 or something that,
This one?
yeah.
So,
80.
this one is 88. This one was drawn up and created based on that drawing. I don't. I think I have.
What's the book and page of this drawing, or there, is this registered?
Yeah.
1871, 599, 600.
So this one was recorded in 1989. And then I do have the plan. Don't.
Book 613. Plan 61.
So in some of these, we trace these back, the plans, and I do have that one and I can send that to the board. We have it. I just can't access my server right now,
Yeah,
but I do
yeah.
have that.
That might save us a little research time just to make
Yep,
sure.
Nope, I can send that over. The funny thing with the older registries is, or the older recorded things, where some are unindexed, some are, put under the most random names you would think, so really gotta do digging.
Yeah, I bet.
It was, took quite some time. But
Hey, well, what was that? What was it, just as an aside, what was this drawing made for? What were they doing here?
this one, let's see if I can.
That was with Vespasian. He had title issues.
That was for him and
Yeah.
his land. and-
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
He- And I know when I bought it, it took the title company a long time to certify the title.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you can see all the deeds
Wow.
and everything that they researched going back, so it goes all the way back to. Plan book, you got plan book 13 in here,
Mhm.
book and pages for deeds back into the 1300s. So,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
You obviously part of a couple.
So we'd like to be able to keep those 10 lots, if that's okay.
What other changes were for open space were made to the plan? Was that it? Or the other?
Well, we eliminated some of the ones that had those little parcels in between and tried to make some connectivity between parcels. So we eliminated some of the smaller parcels and connected. So there's almost like a way to park it. If you could go to the top, Amanda, we put a parking spot up the top So you can drive off the road, park up there and then walk all the way down, walk to the open space. And then walk to that other piece of open space. You need to go across the sidewalk or two, but you can, now everything connects, all of the open space connects as much as we can get it to connect. Rather, that doesn't meet the bylaw. And that's what Mike Andrade's saying. He said, you know, you're supposed to have parcels in between the lots, so they're kind of separation, so separation from the lots.
Separation in clusters.
And
So this is what we had before. So we had the separation of clusters of lots. So you could access different pieces. And then you had slivers that would come through for the connectivity. But after talking with the land trust and trying to, get something that works for both parties or all three parties, it really is to get it, bigger chunks. So more open space and less feuding between neighbors, so to speak, as far as putting stuff on open space land, and this way it kind of keeps it off to the side. So that was the old one. That's the-
So is the plan to keep that open space now, natural landscapings, or is it, or
natural.
natural?
The
What's in
only
there
things
now?
that would change in this open space is we do have a detention pond back here.
Okay.
So in that open space, for drainage, and then I think that's it. That's the only area that's not going to be natural as far as the open space goes.
So who would be in charge of the detention basin if Charlton Land Trust takes the land as open space?
Typically, the developers convey an easement to the town to maintain the detention ponds. I think highway does it.
Yeah, this is one of the few towns, believe it or not, that do. Most of them make us, they won't take the drainage. This is actually one of the few towns that do.
I saw the guys cleaning one yesterday.
In
Up on,
open
Brookfield
space.
Road. Oh, no, one of the ponds. They're inside cutting out the brush and weed whacking.
Is that Manor Ridge per chance?
Yes, it was.
Oh, that's awesome. Yay,
Yep.
check that off my list.
Yep. I saw the guys in there yesterday.
Call down there and tell them
Nice.
thanks.
Yep.
But what is that drainage easement consist of, that open space, not where the pond is, but behind all the house lots? The long thin one on the left.
So back here,
Yep. Is there piping in there? Is it swale? What is it?
so that's going to be, it's an open basin.
That's a totally open basin,
Yes,
and you're calling that open space?
no, that is not open space. So there's 4 open space areas,
Yeah, I saw the green on.
but there are some green that's on there that's a little bit darker shade. That we're showing is differencing or different from the open space. It's the detention ponds. Those are different. So I believe we have 4 detention ponds.
That dark green on the back of all those lots, is not open space.
So this area here is a detention pond.
Okay, and that's.
This area here with the pad, that's a
Yeah.
detention pond down here.
Okay.
And there's one up here.
Okay,
So,
And then the last one is in here.
just that in that area.
so the last one, the detention pond, there's enough room for house, well, and septic on those parcels. Because the sewer and water commissioner, has said that this is not within the sewer and water district that,
Yeah,
you know, that they would not be recommended this connected to the town sewer. So there's enough room on those parcels for a septic well in the house, distance wise.
Oh, yeah. For sure. And you can walk along the detention basins, you can walk along the top of those.
Yeah, they have the 10-foot access
Yeah, I mean,
around them all.
that,
No, I,
Yeah.
but this is standpoint, taking a large chunk of land, and as you showed before with the grading of the basin, it's barely limiting those lots.
So Clea, when you first came in here, you had mentioned that your wish was to get this on sewer and water.
I had spoken to this commission, I went to the commission.
Yeah.
Years ago, and at the time, they were favorable towards it. They've since got unfavorable, but I haven't spoken to them recently because I wanted to see, you know, how it was all gonna lay out. And I've been dealing with the railroad, getting across that railroad with the sewer pipe. I'm just about there, and that was some of the questions that they had for me when I think I spoke to them, I wanna say maybe March or April of this year, I'm guessing, but, they, at one time, they were very, you know, they were favorable towards reconnecting there. Now they're saying, well, they gotta hold some for this project and some for that project, and, you know, they're a little bit skeptical, but I haven't gone back and asked them formally again for a while. If I have to do well in septic, I mean, I have to do well in septic, but, you know, it would be my preference to connect the sewer if I could.
I mean, how big are those lots right now?
Well, they're more than big, just have to have 100-foot separation between the well and the septic. We've not had any problems, in town, we built a lot of houses. And never been an issue,
Yeah.
most of them have been flexible.
Majority of the lots are 45,000 square feet or greater. Based on the zone.
And you're showing sewer line in the street, right?
Well, we're hoping to get it, but.
No, there's none within this area, and the issue with, Charlton, as, was explained to me by Tim Peter Boria, is the town does not have the capacity to connect the subdivision to the sewer. It's outside the sewer area, and they have to run the sewer overland to get to the property. And because of people who've already paid betterment fees and everything, the town has to, you know, contain enough amount of sewer so that everybody who's paid for it already would be able to hook up, so.
Yeah, most of the town is well and septic now, and we've shown the houses in there.
So what's your plan for homes there? What size homes? What do you?
I would say 2,500 square feet now. That's about what I'm doing
2,500 square
now.
feet up, so nothing on the lower end of the affordability range.
Costs too much to build.
That's, you know, that's, no, I get it. Just kind of curious.
All right, so Lisa, your board needs to do due diligence as far as accessibility with that tunnel and then with the open space, am I correct?
Correct, I'll send this plan over to them, we'll schedule a site visit with
Okay,
Clean Amanda, whoever, and take a look at everything out there and,
You want to
take look
include a
at
board
the
member on
configuration.
that? I'm happy to.
Okay, sure.
like Dawn now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
two board members could go without being informed.
Yeah, correct.
So,
No, I'm happy. I'm
So we just want
in
to
the
double,
area, so
Definitely.
available most of the time.
so we just want to double check. with that.
tell you.
So, work from home now.
Now, before we, is there any neighbors that have a question? Just give
Yeah.
your name and address for the record, please.
Scott Shoemaker, 19 Curtis Hill Road.
Yep,
On that tunnel,
Yeah.
is it gonna be ADA compliant? Is one of my questions. Cause I know I've been down, I've seen it, it's probably 50 feet, 55 feet long. Also, is it gonna be lit? Cause when you get in the middle, it's kind of dark, and I'm kind of curious about that.
how does that, the walking passage you guys have now for any open space today, you guys required them to be ADA compliant?
A lot of them are because of the grade,
Yes,
you
correct.
cannot make them ADA compliant.
Okay,
So where this is a cattle tunnel and it's
Yeah.
taken care of by the railroad, I'm not sure what ability we would have. I mean, we obviously wouldn't be able to expand it or rebuild it or do something like that with it.
gotcha.
My understanding is there has to be some level of ADA compliance, but the open space typically is not fully ADA compliant. just because due to grade and topography and
Yeah.
wetlands, there are portions that are not gonna be accessible.
Okay.
And as far as, you know, I would hope people wouldn't be walking through there in the dark, however, typically on trust properties, because we do not charge a fee for access, unless there is a level of gross negligence, you know, we dig a hole and don't fill it in and somebody falls in it,
Mhm.
but otherwise, it's free to recreate upon at your own risk.
Please, you want to say,
I would say that there's no way it could be ADA compliant and it's grandfathered out.
Yep.
I mean, it's not a sidewalk and it's not a street,
Right.
so it doesn't have to be, as far as I know. And then as far as lights in there, I don't know. You wouldn't want to bring power down there to do that, so I'd say probably not.
Okay.
To answer your question, I was just trying to answer it.
And then like, who determines if it's structurally sound enough to support, you know?
Well, it's been there for 120 years.
Right, but a lot of times, you know, over the years, like even 100 years ago, concrete tends to deteriorate. Reinforcing deteriorates, the methods that they use to, you know, pour the walls, it looks to me like some cold joints, I mean, I would think a structural engineer would need to look at it, but.
It's up to the railroad to maintain it. They have to maintain it.
Yeah.
It's obvious that they've been doing it over the years. I mean, it's
True. I
pretty
mean,
clean in there, so.
but now it's a different usage, so I, you know, I question that.
I mean, it's the same usage that it's been applied for and given rights to use for the last, well, since 1908, what's that, you know, 125 years ago? So it has the same abilities that we had then.
Well, it's going from use of private property to use of public property. So I mean, it
Well, that's-
it could get a lot more.
Once the public's
There could
involved,
be a lot more usage.
it's a whole
than-
different ballgame.
But I see what you're saying.
but yeah, the top part, the railroad's on the hook for me.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Yeah,
And the railroad owns the cow tunnel, correct?
We have an easement. Yes,
Right,
they
so
own the
only
property.
an easement, so CHPT or whoever took the open space, we would not own the tunnel.
Right.
We simply would have the right to pass and repass. From one side of the subdivision into the other side of the open space. So there really is no maintenance requirement. Other than, you know, we happen to be trash in, trash out, you know, and bringing out, picking things up along the way. But we would not be responsible for maintenance. And I would imagine if anybody saw an issue with it, we would probably just contact the railroad and say, hey, we're concerned. And you're responsible for maintenance and come out and take a look. And historically speaking, flexible subdivision open space is really not super well traversed by the general public. Typically, it's used by the butters. So I wouldn't necessarily anticipate a ton of foot traffic going through, unless curiosity is someone's going through the house on Lower off of Wolvester Lake.
How many homes are gonna be in this?
72.
72. And some obviously are gonna have children, which it's gonna be an attraction for them.
It would be, yeah, it would be for me when I was a kid.
I'm thinking mine.
But, you know,
For the chair.
yeah, go ahead, John.
So you've got a force main in here, right? So you're betting on that you're gonna get a sewer connection.
well, we designed it because they told me a long time ago that I could. Now they're telling me that I can't. You know, they changed their mind on me, but, well, they haven't said formally, no, I think. I'm hearing rumors from Emmanuel and so forth, but yeah, that's why we
Yeah.
designed it that way.
Peter Boyer, who's the sewer and water superintendent.
Is he still here?
No.
No, he's no
He
longer
actually
here.
left
John
town,
Spencer.
town recently, but
We're always looking for that. Bob, you got a question?
I just have, with this tunnel, where there's gonna be human beings going through it. Shouldn't have to be x-rayed or something like that, shouldn't the town at least have something to say that it is safe to go through? For people walking through it? I understand the railroad owns it and railroad cars go over it and stuff like that. But if the ceiling is starting to deteriorate and stuff like that, there could be other problems.
That would be on the railroad. It's their tunnel to maintain, not the town, not the trust.
So could the railroad say we're closing off the tunnel until we fix it, fix the safety thing, and then you couldn't use it anyway?
By deed, aren't they required to do it?
They're required by statute.
Yeah,
by statute to take care of it. But one of the things, really, the focus of what is happening, or what I think we're trying to determine is whether or not you'll allow me to use that area for lot count. So is there 62 lots or is there 72 lots? As far as walking through the tunnel and things like that, I think that's honestly on the railroad, but if we do turn it over to the land trust, they're gonna have accessibility from another area. And you know, if they wanted, they could close that tunnel off. I think and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the planning board's trying to determine whether or not to let me use that area for lots in the lot count. And I think that it has to be accessible, which it is. And, you know, so I guess that's really what it comes down to. If it does end up getting turned over to land trust, I don't see you using that tunnel a whole lot.
Well, that kind of begs the question, if that easement allows accessibility to LFB and the trust, and LFB decides to close that tunnel,
Who's LFB?
that's the goat farm. They own above that open space parcel. So where there's an easement there, both of us have access. Both of the properties, LFB and that open space, would have access to that tunnel.
Can you, if you look at the easement that came from the tunnel to the property, it was over, it wasn't over LFB property, it was over railroad property to get there.
Yeah.
So it's a little path going through the railroad property and around.
Avoiding LFB.
Avoiding LFB.
So they have a cutout.
I'm not sure if it's a cutout or just.
Just, I'm sorry, this is the
Yeah.
first time I'm seeing it.
Yeah, so
I'm
you see
looking
the
at
bounds
same thing
there,
as
you see
are.
that little path that goes from the end of the tunnel down and then kind of J hooks over.
Yeah, it's on a stone wall.
So it's, and the grade on that is pretty steep, so I'm not sure how easy accessible it is. But that's the easement if you wanna, you know, goat walk across, to use lack of a better term.
All right, so
to
we'll
avoid
take
the
a look.
goats.
I mean, we have to take a
Yeah,
look at all of it.
I'm curious to
because
see it. I'm just,
Same.
you know, how accessible it is. Yeah, on paper, it looks like it's accessible, but how accessible is it? And, you know, with our bylaws around this type of development, what was the reasoning behind requiring 25% open space? That was to kind of make a clustered development look a little bit bigger by providing space within that development to move around. And by taking all that open space within that development and moving it out, it kind of defeats the purpose of the bylaw. So, you know, you're allowed extra lots, but be creating these open spaces within the area that are usable to make it kind of look bigger than what it is. So by pushing all that out of the development itself, you're defeating the purpose of the bylaw. So that's my other concern.
It just seemed more natural space, and it works best for the land trust, that's why. So,
And for the developer.
and for me,
And
yes,
for the developer.
absolutely.
All right, since we're waiting for the hear back from the land trust and they're looking to, do a motion to continue, this public hearing to,
I go with you next year.
Yeah, I mean,
Third.
the next meeting is probably January
January
3rd.
third,
Is
7/20.
that enough time to,
Better for you.
17th.
would that give enough
17th.
time to?
January
Christmas
17th,
coming,
January
you try.
January 17th,
17, that
17th.
should give us,
Okay,
January
thank
17th.
you.
I'll make a motion to continue the hearing for Curtis Hill Estates till January 17th, 2024.
Second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right, thank you.
I just wanna ask a quick question. How soon do you wanna go out and take a look at all this? You wanna go like next week or? I mean, we should probably settle it before it starts snowing pretty hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to you whenever you have time and you work with Lisa to come up with a good time, just let me know and I'll
Okay,
make myself
Sure.
available.
Perfect.
yeah, the weekdays are out for me except for Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Monday through Thursdays, forget it,
Okay.
but
I
I'm
can
sure
do-
we
I
can.
can do weekends, I
come
can
up
do
with
Fridays.
something.
It gets a
And
little
I'll see
tougher.
how many
I
of
like
the
to get
board
drunk
members
on
wanna
Fridays.
come out too, cause this is an interesting one, so I think both people who are gonna wanna look. So,
Right,
Right.
so we'll be in touch and we'll try to connect everybody.
yeah, sounds good.
Thank you very much.
guys,
everyone.
have a good night.
Thank you. Randy can give you my email if you need it. It's on, should be on there.
Yeah. you
It's
can
on the
contact
website?
me
Yeah,
if
it
you
should be on
need
there.
Perfect.
the
John
email.
Clay, Town of Charles.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have a continued public hearing for Edward Services Site Plan Application 16 Service Road Route 20. They have requested a continuance to January 3rd, 2024. We have a motion.
Their attorney made the request to continue it.
So I'll make a motion to continue the Edward Services Site Plan Application 16 Circuit Road to January 3rd, 2024.
Second.
Go ahead.
I'm waving the J.
Oh, sorry.
I didn't see her in a while.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. All right, we have a A&R for Fields Living Trust
Yeah,
in Gervais at Colican Drive, looking for a lot line adjustment.
They do. One time was paper reduction act at one time. No chance, right out the window.
I know.
But you
I
tried.
saved a tree though.
yeah.
No, sounds like it's gonna be cut down now for solar.
Yeah. We need a thousand. Cut it down, build that.
I guess one of the two neighbors, they were doing some surveying and there was a question about a fence there. And they realized their shed was on the neighbor's property, so they were doing this lot line adjustment. One neighbor's giving the other neighbor some land and then taking some land. So basically, the shed will now meet the setbacks on the property. If you look where the new property line is, the exit is where the fencing was, where they assumed is where they owned the property, but in fact, the property line went straight through the shed. So now they're just questions go around the shed and in the back here. They're swapping pieces of property, so it's a lot line adjustment, basically.
And lot sizes are still.
Yeah, everything's, basically unchanged except for the configuration of the lot. Just to get the shed into a conforming location so it meets the setback.
For the 40,000 square foot lots. Do they meet the proper size for that zone?
Yeah, it's an
Yeah.
open subdivision.
Yeah, it was part of,
One center
Um,
state.
yeah.
And they just share the share. Yeah. And he did, and he did.
Yeah. It was like a third way through on one side. Do a motion to approve the A&R.
Make a motion to approve the A and R.
Second.
All those in favor?
I,
Aye, it's unanimous.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Move them down there.
give them to Jane.
We'll be up to.
Ross, he's on a diet. Did I just knock something off? Sorry.
I also just for. That's yourself, this is, might have seen them earlier, but now it's the end of the year, the meeting date for next year. Yeah, so, and also just that, remind, assuming the attorney for the Burlingame does send over.
Yeah.
By copy, of everybody can try to make a attempt to stop by and sign that, so we don't hold them up too
Yep.
long.
Yep, yep, yep.
Beginning of the week, okay? Beginning of next week, okay?
What's that?
I think tomorrow's Thursday and you're out Friday, so yeah, I'll be Monday, Tuesday next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. You date those? Were they dated? Uh-oh. Did we need to date those?
We need to date them, Randy. We
Need to
put
date
a-
those.
Need to put a date on
Yeah.
those.
That's what I'm looking for. Thank you.
Who made the cookies? Excellent. Anything all day.
Oh, we'll have some.
Oh, no. I've got some chili waiting for me.
Got some
Yeah.
chili.
All right, anyone have anything else?
Anything new? I didn't get a chance to go up to Amazon. Did anybody go up there?
Oh, I'm sorry, we do have one more item. The planning board had,
Yeah, that thing.
requested to get a plan of the driveway for the property on Route 20.
Yep.
They had approved it and said, I don't know if anybody's been by the property, they have done the work to clear for a parking area.
Oh,
And this
yes.
is just a plain, showing what they have done.
So it's in here somewhere.
It's very back in the packet.
Yeah, I'll change my packet all around, so.
They had to dig in that parking space.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, no, I got it, I got it.
I'm coming to the.
I found it. Pictures are still hard to tell by looking at them. Are they putting gravel down or is that just gonna?
That's gravel.
That's
They
gravel.
just
Yeah.
put gravel down,
Okay.
yes.
And I see the banking there, anything to hold the banking back, no. My only concern is if you look at spots, on that 50 by 27 area.
Yeah.
Off to the side. To back up out of those spots, and if somebody's parked in that handicap spot. Now, I understand the 2 yellow spots are for employee parking, so they're not gonna be used, but if somebody's parking in that handicap spot, does that give those cars the ability to pull out, back up and not back up onto Route 20? My biggest concern is somebody trying to get out of there and decides that they can't get out and they're gonna back up onto Route 20. That's my biggest concern looking at it, because I had to do a 3-point turn in that driveway when I was there. I'd like somebody else to take a look at it and tell me what their opinion is.
Take a look at it.
You'll swing by?
Yeah, just go right in and-
Yeah, I mean, that's all it takes. I have not seen it since they did this work, but I know the day that I was there, and they've done quite a bit of work.
Yeah.
A couple of trees came down and. It happened, so
Yeah.
I mean, I'll swing by there again too, but I just want another second opinion, because for me, it just looks tight.
Yeah, if somebody wants,
You know what I mean?
or a couple people and just report that you're satisfied or you're not satisfied, whatever the case may be, so that I can report it to the property owner.
27 feet is a whole bunch of space.
And no, and that 27 feet is to the,
Oh.
is to there,
Edge of asphalt.
is to the edge of the asphalt, to the building.
Oh.
So you put a, 10-foot car in there, now you got 17 feet. Which isn't, exactly,
My truck can't do it.
exactly.
Say that right now. Over here, it's okay.
Well,
these
yeah,
three,
those,
but
those are
those
even
two
the,
are
well, even this one would probably be fine to do. it.
compact
It's-
old.
Right?
It's just that fifth car on the left there that, maybe call that 4 spots and
I was just gonna say, and
put some plantings there
Everybody
or
puts-
something.
like everybody's gonna park so nice and neat. One guy goes in like this.
How many spaces is
Just let it
required
out
for
in front
the
of town hall.
bylaw?
I looked at it, I said,
The guys that.
For a professional
I don't think
office.
they require all those spots.
No, they don't
And I
require,
So
they actually have.
It's public, they have- Just want to make sure it works.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it works.
Functions.
Yeah,
I mean, if they needed to put a planting in here or something to block this one off and a lot, this one seems like it's
It's just this one.
it's just that.
Yeah, they have more spots in the.
They have more than they are.
It's the size of the building
Okay,
in the U.
gotcha. So John, you're gonna take a
Yeah,
ride by,
I think it's
all right. And just let Randy know, and you'll call them, I don't feel enough. So what, you did a site
Gotcha.
visit,
What's that?
Amazon, you did Amazon?
Yeah, we did, I did, yep.
Okay.
We did.
They have a big project on their hands to remediate that wall that.
We got a big project on
Yeah,
their hands,
it's
period.
very big.
And it's
They're
starting
moving a lot of dirt.
a 50-foot section that collapsed and it's turned into 1,000 feet that they've had to basically excavate
Yep.
back.
Yeah, yeah. they've
$5
got a
million to-
Significant problem. there.
Remediate
To
that?
remediate that.
Yeah.
$5 million.
I think probably everybody has noticed, or most of you, that, 241, they have
Yep.
started work.
I did see that there's a lot of,
They have,
Activity?
they drained the driveway. The Mass DOT's requirement to put a paved entrance in
Yes.
after all the brouhaha with Amazon and
Yeah,
on
yeah.
Route 20.
moving the
They're
dirt off.
holding 241 feet of the fire that you will pave that entrance with a base coat before we let you
Yeah.
start doing any
Continue.
work on right away. Not just a stone tractor pad, they want it paved,
Yeah.
so.
So I sent you a question about, off of, A Young Road,
Mm,
and you talked to Kurt about that. Did anybody find out what's going on? I mean,
Oh, yeah,
it could be just logging.
It was, yeah, it was a forestry management plan.
Was it? Okay.
The Conservation Commission
Okay.
had that plan, so they were aware of it.
Okay. Okay, because I did hear from somebody that there's a solar farm going in kind of on that property, but in the Oxford side. Cause that property goes over into Oxford,
Oh.
and I did hear that there was a solar development going in there. I just wanted to make sure that they were kind of crossing the lines and accessing it from.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, usually typically when, even if they're accessing it from this town, you know, we would be aware of that, so.
So, I mean, there was a
we
big
haven't
piece of
been told
property
anything
that,
about it.
Bill
lock,
Lockpot.
correct, right across from Schmidt.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yep.
It's where they're putting
That backs
the
up
rotary in?
Yeah, they're putting the rotary in on Route
But
20,
and he's got the other one.
Well,
Yeah,
he's
the old-
he's back a little bit further up
Yeah.
behind.
the old junkyard
Oh, yeah.
used to be there, so.
Other new business, can we put a committee together to redo the decommissioning solar policy? Maybe we should update that. Based on
We'll
some.
just put it on our agenda item.
Yeah, or just.
Yeah. We can talk about raising it to those.
Raising it, and Lori had a good point, follow the parcel, maybe put a comment on.
Yeah, it'd be a good idea to find out what we have out there for, and Randy, can you, or somebody do that, find out what we have out there for bonds right now?
Yeah.
And how many of them are up to date and current and actually being tracked?
And
Because once
actually,
we do it, we lose track of it and it then doesn't sound like other people are picking it up.
yeah, and actually what I've heard
Good
from
example.
other towns that are surrounding towns, Spencer, Warren, some of the other towns. Is $100,000 sounds like a lot of money, but it's low compared to a lot of surrounding communities.
Good,
So
yeah.
it's like, you know, we're not here to rake them over the coals, we just wanna make sure the town's protected, you know, whatever the cost.
Yeah.
The problem is too, that originally the solar panels were considered just recyclable, now the question, and I don't think that question's ever been answered yet, are they truly recyclable or not? Right.
Well, we had also talked about last meeting, kind of an update of what's going on in the planning office and what's being worked on and things that we may not be aware of that might be coming up. Can we get that on an agenda item for the end of the meetings, just kind of a
Yeah,
follow-up of,
our next meeting, we're gonna have a public hearing on the proposed bylaw revision. It's from the applicant, not from the planning board. They're proposing overlay air district for utility, they call it, it's battery, energy storage sites, but, they call it utility sites, which basically they look at 100 megawatts in there, locating within proximity of the substation and the, high tension power line, because that's where they basically need to be, so they've marked some locations, they're gonna have a public hearing before the board to see if we recommend supporting their application or not, because they know they have to go to town meeting and everything, so they have provided some language on,
It's good they're starting that early. That's good.
yeah, because they want to try to make the May town meeting. And, also, gonna be our next, review that we have to do, we did the bylaws, well, now we have to do the master plan, so I'm gonna be sending out the RFP. We had applied for a grant to get more money for to hire professional, to review the master plan, unfortunately, we didn't get it, so. But we have $50,000 allocated already, which I talked to Andrew. If we run into a problem, there's a potential for more, but I'm gonna be RFP for, to get a professional, you know, or the CMRPC or a private, you know, attorney, whoever, to work with the board on, amending our max or updating our master plan. So that'll be one of our big projects next year, squeezing it in amongst all our smaller projects.
When the master plan's online, right? It's
Yeah.
on there, any more page?
Yeah, I think the old one, 2009, 2010, it's old now, yeah, so. And also, IMCON has now come to an agreement with, Zero Point has now come to an agreement with INCOM that they're now gonna be coming back to the board with a third battery storage facility on Route 169, down where the
INCOM
LNG
with-
plant is.
Okay.
So, and we have an application for multi-family development on Trolley Crossing Road that the board will be hearing next month, and we're anticipating to get another application for a multi-family development on the other side of Trolley Crossing Road.
Different owners.
Different owners, yeah.
Seems like a decent location. for-
Yeah. Rick Care, one of them?
Yeah, he's. So,
The other one's probably right across the street.
Yeah. Well, good, thanks. That much space there?
It won't be gigantic.
Is that right by MTD and right through there?
Yeah.
yeah,
One right before you pull off.
Okay.
and fortunately,
Pull in
for,
from Main Street?
speaking of that, the Edwards gas station that we keep going around circles about, they have now gotten a local attorney. I'm not familiar with him, but he is at least in the state. So that's a plus for me, instead of working with people from New Jersey, that, he's gonna be handling their application, because they have the, site plan for the gas station, but they now applied for a special permit for the actual gas station sign, because, and that, for that freestanding gas station sign, it actually comes before the planning board as a special permit versus a variance. So.
Great. For a sign.
We get more gas stations and anything.
Yeah, I don't know if
Bridge
there's
it
gonna
over,
be room
whatnot.
to put a building there with that guy. He seems like he's bringing stuff in, not taking it out. but
Right?
That's between them.
Love it. The guy next door.
It started looking good there for a while, I thought. Better.
Yeah, then it looks like
You
it's
need
starting
more
growing
barrels.
again, you know, so I don't know.
It spreads.
Is it spread off his property or is it on his property? Is
I think it's office property.
off his
Yeah.
property now? That's.
Oh, it's way off.
Way off his property.
Yeah, I don't know how many, they've gone ways into the property.
Crazy. All right, no one has anything else, we have a motion to adjourn.
Merry Christmas and motion to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Like,
Aye.
aye.
Aye. All right, that's it.
Thank you.